In the heart of World War II, one city became the ultimate crucible of human endurance. A city whose name would echo through history, synonymous with unimaginable suffering and unbreakable will. This is the story of Stalingrad. By the autumn of 1942, Hitler's war machine, the seemingly unstoppable Wehrmacht, had pushed deep into the Soviet Union. Their target was the industrial city named after Stalin himself. Its capture was not just a strategic objective. It was a matter of immense ideological pride for the Third Reich. For the Soviet Union, its defense was a sacred duty. The order from Stalin was clear, not a step back. As the German Sixth Army tightened its iron grip, Stalingrad transformed into a hellscape. The relentless bombardment of the Luftwaffe had reduced it to a skeleton of rubble and ash. Streets became killing fields, and every building, every factory, every pile of debris became a fortress. This was no longer a war of grand maneuvers. It was a brutal, intimate conflict fought room by room, man against man. They called it Rattenkrieg, the Rat War. The soldiers of the Soviet 62nd Army, under the command of General Vasily Chukov, were pushed back against the icy banks of the Volga River. Their backs were to the water, with no room left to retreat. Supplies and reinforcements had to cross the river under constant German artillery and air attacks. Many boats never made it. For the men clinging to the western bank, every bullet, every crust of bread was precious. Survival was measured in hours, not days. In this landscape of devastation, one particular building would become a legend. It was a simple four-story apartment block on the 9th of January Square. On a late September day, a platoon from the 13th Guards Rifle Division was ordered to seize and hold it. Leading them was Junior Sergeant Yakov Pavlov. They stormed the building, driving out the few German soldiers inside, and began to dig in. They had no idea this shattered structure would become their home, their fortress, and their tomb for the next 2 months. Initially, Pavlov's platoon was just a handful of men. They were cut off, surrounded, and vastly outnumbered. The building, which commanded a clear view of the square, was a critical position. The Germans knew it and were determined to take it back. What followed was a siege of incredible ferocity. The men inside fortified their new home with whatever they could find: bricks from collapsed walls, furniture, sandbags, even mattresses. They knocked holes in interior walls to create a labyrinth of communication trenches, allowing them to move between firing positions without exposing themselves. They surrounded the building with barbed wire and laid minefields using salvaged explosives. Days were a blur of constant attacks. German infantry, supported by tanks, assaulted the building again and again. The defenders, armed with rifles, machine guns, and a precious few anti-tank rifles, repelled every wave. Muzzle flashes illuminated the dark, smoke-filled rooms as bullets tore through the crumbling walls. The roar of tank engines and the thunder of explosions became the constant soundtrack to their existence. The building, soon to be known as Pavlov's house, became a thorn in the side of the German advance, a tiny, defiant island in a sea of gray uniforms. As days turned into weeks, Pavlov's small group was reinforced. The garrison grew to about 25 men, a motley crew of different nationalities from across the Soviet Union. They were not just soldiers. They were a brotherhood forged in the fires of combat. They shared everything: their meager rations of stale bread and watery soup, their dwindling ammunition, and their deepest fears. In the basement, they even sheltered a handful of civilians who had been trapped when the fighting began. These men and women became part of the defense, tending to the wounded, reloading ammunition clips, and offering what little comfort they could. Life in Pavlov's house was a descent into a primal struggle for survival. The bitter Russian winter arrived, bringing with it sub-zero temperatures, snow, and ice. Frost coated their weapons and bit at their exposed skin. Sleep was a luxury, stolen in short, fitful bursts, always with one ear open for the sound of an approaching enemy. The nights were long and terrifying, punctuated by the sudden, deafening crash of artillery shells that shook the building to its foundations. In the flickering light of a kerosene lamp, they would read letters from home, whisper stories of their past lives, and mourn the comrades who had fallen beside them. The psychological toll was immense. Every shadow could hide a sniper. Every creak of the floorboards could signal an infiltration. Yet their resolve never broke. They developed a grim, efficient routine. Snipers like Anatoly Chekhov and Vasily Zaitsev, operating from hidden nests within the ruins, became ghosts that haunted the German lines, picking off officers and machine gunners with deadly precision. Communication with their headquarters across the river was maintained by a field telephone, its wire laid precariously across the open ground and frequently severed by shelling. Each time the line went dead, a soldier had to brave the open square to repair it, a near-suicidal task. Why was this one building so important? A map from the time tells the story. Pavlov's house sat at a crucial crossroads, preventing the Germans from breaking through to the Volga in this sector. German military maps eventually marked the building simply as a fortress, while the grand struggle for Stalingrad raged across miles of city. The fight for Pavlov's house was a microcosm of the entire battle, a testament to the power of human will against overwhelming odds. The Germans threw everything they had at it, but the defenders refused to yield. After nearly 60 days of relentless, unceasing combat, the tide of the larger battle began to turn. In mid-November, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus, a massive counteroffensive that encircled the entire German Sixth Army. The hunters had become the hunted. As the Soviet pincers closed, the pressure on Pavlov's house finally began to ease. On November 25th, the defenders were able to link up with counterattacking Soviet forces. They had held the line. The men who walked out of that ruined building were not the same ones who had entered 2 months earlier. They were gaunt, frostbitten, and haunted by what they had seen and done. But they were alive, and they had not been broken. Of the small garrison, only a few had survived the entire siege. Their stand became a powerful symbol of Soviet resistance, celebrated throughout the country. Sergeant Pavlov was awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. Today, Pavlov's house has been rebuilt. One wall from the original structure has been preserved, covered in thousands of bricks, each one representing a life lost in the battle for the city. It stands as a silent monument to the defenders. The story of Pavlov's house is more than just a tale of military tactics. It's a story about the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. It shows how, in the darkest of times, a small group of ordinary people, driven by duty and love for their homeland, could achieve the impossible. They held a single building, but in doing so, they helped save a city, and in a small but significant way, helped turn the tide of the Second World War. Their legacy is not written in grand monuments, but in the quiet courage of holding on, one more day, one more hour, to their last breath. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more chapters from history.